Well, we survived 2011, maybe only just. Do we go into 2012 with a spring in our step or a slouch in our shoulders? I think I know the answer. Nick Binedell, the head of GIBS, is going to give us a slouch, obviously.
Clearly not, Bruce. No, I think we have survived the year. I think it's been one of those extraordinary South African years, full of change and full of challenges, but we've come through it reasonably well.
When you say we've come through it reasonably well, explain that.
Well,
a lot of people feel as though there have been 9 rounds with Mike Tyson.
No, we have had. We've had 15 rounds with Mike Tyson. But I think South Africans are resilient in this way. And every year feels the same. And every year you think, round about October, oh my God, we're not going to make it. But we do. And this country's grown, the economy. Many countries haven't. We've certainly had a year in which business has done reasonably well. The economy, although is under pressure, exports continue, especially to Asia. There's a vitality to South Africa.
When we look at the politics of South Africa, next year is going to be one dominated by politics. There's a conference in Mangaung in December next year. The leadership battle of the ANC is going to do nothing if not hot up. And that's going to be a massive distraction and a massive emotional drain for a lot of South Africans.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, in a way, one should say politics shouldn't be an emotional drain. Politics are central to countries like ours. And who knows how this will pan out. Maybe at some point in the year it'll become clear what the succession dynamics will be. Maybe not. And maybe we'll face a very contested policy conference in December. That's just part of the fabric of being a democracy.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, is it?
Well, it's a bad thing. I mean, as you know, I always say, politics is so important for economics. And in countries like ours, it drives the economy. So good politics makes good economics, and the opposite. But in the long run, of course, it's critical. All these debates there's been this week over the media. So maybe it's a productive thing if it's a creative debate, if it leads to a sense of consensus within the party. This is a good thing. If it's very fractured and we end up in a terrible mess, then it's not good for us.
In terms of the economy, there are lots of calls. I'm not sure where you stand on this one. For the economic codessa, any purpose?
Well, I think there is a need for South Africa to regroup. The planning processes have partly helped do that, but I have a feeling at some point in time there is a need for another conversation, a high-level conversation about where we're going. I think it's more than an economic codessa. It's got to do with civil society, it's got to do with the state and politics, it's got to do with business and the economy. Many people don't think that, enough talk, but I think there needs to be a framework, some broad consensus of, what is the role of business in society? Can we get the state to be more effective? How do we ensure there's delivery? And how do we ensure the voice of people is in both business and in our political life?
You travel extensively. You've seen countries where this has worked. Brazil is a notable example. Lyle White was writing and talking about that recently. You've got the command economy of China, of which you are an admirer. It's effective there. When you look at South Africa, do we need to be looking at those examples and extrapolating the best from those?
Yes, all the time. I think my philosophy is learn from everyone, copy no one. So let's learn these lessons of countries in transition, those who've made it and those who haven't, and let's understand more deeply how South Africa compares to these other countries. We're not a Brazil. We don't have the numbers of people. Our economy depends very significantly on Africa, and the future of South Africa's economy is hugely tied to the economic development of Africa. That's a particular set of challenges that are different than a country like Brazil. We're not Singapore, which is a speedboat. In some ways easier to coordinate. We can go there, study it, learn lessons, but we are not Singapore. So, you have to learn from all these examples. But what you have to have is a common consensus about the way forward, as much as possible in a messy, difficult, fragmented country like this.
When you talk about a difficult, messy, fragmented country, we've got a difficult, messy, fragmented continent upon which our future depends. I was talking to a fund manager who invests money on the African continent on behalf of clients, and he goes, you look at the demographics of Africa and you look at the projections of 2030, there'll be 1.5 billion people on the continent. That's lots of consumers. And this fund manager says the demographics argument for Africa is so sexy that once you've read it, you feel the need to take a shower afterwards. But there is a risk, however, that the reality of Africa is one of possibly perpetual poverty in many regions.
Well, that may be. I mean, if you look at Latin America, you've got the high-speed economies of Brazil, the large economy of Brazil, Chile, Argentina, some of them doing very well. You've got some countries doing very badly. Some small countries not really viable. We have the same thing here. 53 countries, different speeds, different levels of infrastructure. Some have democratized more than others. Some are not yet democratized. Some are petrodollar states. Some have huge potential. Look at the DRC. Look at Angola. Some are reasonably hustly-bustly countries like Kenya. The Nigerians clearly are going to overtake us in 2015. That's extraordinary. There are 44 million internet users in Nigeria, 6 million in South Africa. For most South Africans, that's a surprise. So it's a very varied continent. But the basic facts are huge natural resources, an enormous population. Some will inevitably get left behind, as they have been in China.
What's the one thing we need to do right next year to ensure that this time next year we look back and we go, 2012 was better than 2011?
I don't believe in the one thing magic bullet. I think what we all need to do, including me, is stop, take stock of what's happened, try and understand the broader trends, do repair and maintenance on yourself, think about what your agenda is for the next year, prepare for what I think will be a very, very interesting year next year. I'm optimistic about next year. I think that this year we've surprised ourselves. We always surprise ourselves, and it's all terrible until we look at the results, and it's not too bad. And if you look at how people are leading, the difference they're making, often things are a bit of a mess, the potholes, the traffic lights, but actually the economy functions, and we'll get on with it next year. And this country has a dynamism to it that I find so appealing. I spend a lot of time in Europe, and you can see they're confronting deep problems, but they don't know what to do about them. We know what to do. We've got advice for everybody. And I'm saying the best thing to do is take the mirror, get advice for yourself, and enter 2012 full of passion and drive for what I think will be a very exciting year.
Nick Binedell, the head of GIBS.